Happy holidays, Flames fans. Welcome to another edition of Flames Unfiltered with your host, Brad Burud, and myself, Kyle Lewis. Brad, how you feeling? How's the holidays treating you?
Good. It's this middle of the week holiday stuff is slightly jacked.
I'm actually loving it because for me, it's kind of everyone's just taking all this time off, and it's just been amazing. I'm getting like hardly any phone calls, a couple texts, a couple emails, but I had to work a bit today. Got a little bit backed up at one point, but other than that, it's been pretty relaxing.
I don't know. I'm such a creature of like routine.
I could see that. And I am too, to be fair.
Are you going to throw a shot at me here now?
No, I'm the exact same way, but to the point of it being a problem, quite frankly.
Me too. And I don't roll with the punches very well. So that being said, like this has been a little tricky. I wish we could work it where holidays are always like Thursday, Friday or something so we can pair it with a weekend. But we take it any way we can get it. And
yes.
It is... it's time for the new year already. So
yeah, it's pretty scary. I don't know where the hell the last year went. Well, the last few years they all just kind of flow together, it seems, but it's all good. Also, I should point out, as you've probably already noticed, I'm wearing my new Booz and Tuna t-shirt, so thank you for that.
They are the intro and outro music for the podcast. They have been for a year now.
Yeah, so now that the Canada Post strike has finally ended, I received my parcel from Brad, including all the Booz and Tuna items that should have been here about 6 or 7 weeks ago, but it's now here. Good.
That is absolutely crazy to me. Yeah. Crazy.
Yeah, it was a mess, and
I do think it's funny though when you said to me today, "Hey, send me that tracking number," and then like 20 minutes.
Then I got home and it was here.
Yeah, I know, but that's how life goes, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely. So.
Yeah. Well,
anyway,
the long break, right? They didn't play hockey for a lot of days, so it limits the stuff that we're going to be talking about. So, because not a lot has happened because they haven't been on the ice, but they were back last night. Are back Saturday night actually.
Yes.
A nice 3-1 win on Saturday night over the Sharks, and then last night a tough lot, 3-0 loss, closer than the 3-0 looks. To Vegas, and we'll touch base on both of those stories, talk a little bit about some news around the league, and whatever else comes up, right, Kyle?
Yeah, there's always lots to talk about. So it's World Junior season, obviously, and we have a lot of dialogue going up here north of the border.
You guys have a lot of like.
I was saying this to my buddy that works the Blue Jackets today, Danny Flynn. I was saying to him this morning, we had a coffee, and I said, I've never ever seen, at least that I can recall, a Canadian team get so much criticism for the way they picked it, like how much skill was left off, and it's been that,
but it's just it to me, I don't know. Okay, and everybody that listens to this show routinely knows that I'm from the States. I'm only about an hour south of Canada though, so I'm kind of both, right? But in the US, we view the World Juniors differently than you guys do. And I'm not saying you're wrong. I think actually you're probably more right. Canada probably handles it with a little bit more prestige than we do.
I would suspect so. Yeah.
Which is either right or wrong. I don't really know. To me, I love the World Juniors. I had my first live experience. I've talked about it 100 times in the show in Grand Forks, and I follow it every year, and I watch it, and I always find it interesting because Canada puts the weight of the country on these players, and whether they're the right players or the wrong players, that's up for argument, right? But it is funny to me the pressure that's put on them and the lack of pressure that's put on the U.S. team. I bet you if I would have walked the streets today and asked 20 people the score of the U.S. game yesterday, 20 would have said, "What are you talking about?" It's awful of me. I'm slightly embarrassed to say that. But but I'm also speaking in reality, right? There's no sense in sugarcoating it. I wish the US was a little more in tune to it, but I'm just being blatantly honest. That I don't know that anybody would have known what I was talking about. It is funny though, and it is a tournament that every year I feel like it's more up for grabs than ever. But for some reason, the fan base in Canada doesn't feel like it is. Is that a crazy statement?
No, I don't think so. And you got to keep in mind too. And I mean, obviously, hockey's religion up here, and
and that's why I like Canada so much.
Yeah, but we've also created
the only reason.
Yeah. Oh God, I hope
there's other reasons I like it.
Lots of other great things.
Your guys' lifestyle is just a little slower paced, and I like that.
Yeah, depending on what part of the country you're in, but yeah, generally speaking, I mean, it's yeah. As far as the hockey thing goes, I mean, there's such an expectation of excellence when it comes to especially the World Juniors, right? But I mean, the reality is, the U.S. development program and programs overseas have made other countries, neck and neck with Canada. I mean, it kind of ties in discussion we had not long ago about Canadian goaltenders. Like the top five goaltenders in the NHL, none of them are Canadian.
Nope.
Most of them are American. So things have changed, narratives change. I mean, even Latvia beating Canada shootout was mind blowing.
Do you want to talk about that game now? We might as well before the Flames. We can talk about that game.
Sure. I don't want to talk about it at all, but let's do it.
I didn't even really want to talk about this, but I will. It was a good hockey game to watch, though. And my daughter asked me, she says, well, you're cheering for Canada, right? And I said, well, yeah, I guess. Albeit I know there's no Canadian that's cheering for the US. And I'm not sure why. I'm not sure why, because really, if you script this the right way, we want to be playing each other for the championship, right?
Yeah, of course. Of course.
But watching that game, I just felt like it was going to happen. Didn't you?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, 100%. And
you can just see it coming.
Yeah, it's I don't know, man. It's just I have a lot of mixed feelings about it. But I mean, I guess the good thing is that these other countries have come such a long ways. Even Kazakhstan pushing Slovakia to a shootout, absolutely wild. Kazakhstan was relegated for years and years and years and years and years, right? So, the tournament was always expected to be Canada and out of the US or Russia, maybe Sweden.
Yep.
And now it's become a lot more open-ended, and it's good because it's like anything else. When you're just the country that wins all the time, it kind of eventually wears on everybody else, becomes less entertaining, right?
We all want to be the winner, but we don't want it to be too easy. I just think it's healthier for the sport of hockey if we have some of these upsets along the way, right? Like, and I mean, US lost yesterday too, so it's not a Canada-US thing. It does bother me that Russia's not in it. It's not the same without Russia.
Not at all. No.
When we've talked about that in previous episodes, and probably don't need to go down that road anymore. But it's going to be interesting as the U.S. currently sits with 7 points and Canada sits with 7 points in Group A. And Finland's not a bad hockey team either. So it's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out, right?
Yep, no, it is, and I mean it'll be entertaining regardless. We got the New Year's Eve game between the Americans and Canadians, as we often do. Some friends of mine will be at that game, which I think is great. Should be a good one. So
I had to laugh last night. I'm watching the Flames game against Vegas, and as we were watching that, Canada was playing Germany, right? Yeah, yeah, and it was a tight game. It was 1-0 deep into the third, and I think everybody on Twitter was watching the World Juniors, and there was like hardly any comments at all about the Flames game last night.
I know, other than me rambling.
You were going off.
Oh, I was so mad. And then Robert Munich called me out, like, respectfully, and was like, curious, like, why are you so upset about this? And I was like, man, like, you can't have a minute 8 of 5-on-3 and not score. You just can't. That's not acceptable. And it turns out, and we'll get into this a little bit more, because we got to cover the Sharks game too. The Flames actually have the worst 5-on-3 power play in the last 15 years of the entire NHL. It's only like 19.2%.
Is that a Kyle stat? Where did you find that?
It was on Twitter today. Darren Haynes, I believe. I got to give credit where credit's due. Darren Haynes posted it.
He's always got good insight. Both those guys we're talking about now.
These guys are go-to guys for Flames, information, and that is a mind-blowing stat. How the hell are we that bad at 5-on-3? That needs to be looked into much deeper.
Well, I mean, you can't look in. I mean, if that's a stat from years back, I mean, isn't it not like kind of a product of the direction of this way this franchise has been? No, kind of. Like we haven't had this super supreme offensive talent, right? That's going to drive a power play to top tier, right?
Yep. Yeah. Oh yeah.
I mean, when it boils down, I think that's what it is, right?
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. It's I don't know. It's just that was one thing that really rattled me. The thing that really bothered me, and I said this as well to Robert and anybody else who cared to read. I can't stand when a team completely wastes a goaltender's effort. If they walked away with a point, I would have been happy. But Dan Vladar stood on his head and got absolutely nothing for it. We had a parade to the penalty box. We took no advantage of ample power play time. It was an infuriating game, and I expected it was kind of like a scheduled loss. You know, you're playing Vegas, one of the best teams in the league, in Vegas. Second night of back-to-backs. Long break, beat San Jose the night before, so whatever.
It looked like a second night of a back-to-back, didn't it? And I rarely allow or use that excuse, but coming off a break that was probably longer than the team even wanted, longer than I believe any other NHL team in the league this year. They looked a little tired last night, I thought, and
yeah, understandably so.
Not that I'm not an excuse guy though. Like the schedule's the schedule, but it just seemed like that in the first period, it just seemed like Vladar was just save after save after save after save that was just holding them in. And the second that nice tip by Howden, and they're in, and 1-0, and it seemed like a real uphill battle from there. But as a whole, like I didn't. I thought the Kadri Pospisil Huberdeau line was fine last night. I thought Backlund, Coronado, and I think Coronado was our best player last night.
Yeah, he was good. He was really good.
I mean, this will lead to other conversations, but outside of there, I didn't see a lot. But I mean, definitely Dan Vladar stood on his head last night, and I agreed with you when you said we wasted a good goaltending performance. But haven't we become accustomed? And we, at the beginning of the year, we both would have fallen off our chairs if we would have been talking about how important or how good the goaltending is going to be. I don't think any of us expected this, but our goaltending's been top notch all year, really. And
we have one of the best tandems in the league, and I don't think that's really up for debate.
I feel like so much of this fan base and ourselves to an extent too, with Devin Cooley on a one-way deal next year. It's like, it's like all of us are showing up at Vladar's house every night to help him pack boxes to get out of here. And we're waiting for a trade. But I think this guy's integral to the development of Wolf too, to take some of the heat off of him and know that on a nightly basis, either guy that we're putting in is going to give us a top-notch performance, right?
Yeah, well, that's the thing, and it's like I saw an article today. I didn't read it very closely, but I think it was Eric Francis. I suspect it was, but making the argument of re-signing Dan Vladar, and because he wants to stay, and depending on what the market's like, and obviously Cooley being a one-way deal creates some complications. But I mean, it's an interesting take, and it's curious how a season unfolds, how the narrative will change, right? Because even 2 months ago, the idea was Vladar was gone no matter what.
Would you be upset? I mean, I know it would complicate things a little bit, but in a way, all we're looking for is a good tandem. And I really don't care who it is or what their names are. If it's Vladar Wolf, I'm happy. If it's Cooley Wolf, I'm happy. But here's the deal. If we do trade Vladar or let him walk in free agency, we think we know what we got with Cooley, but we don't have NHL experience in front of us for the Flames to back that. So is it a safer route to re-sign Vladar and roll with those two as a tandem that we know we have quality? Or is it better to see what we get on the trade market or let him walk as a free agency? There's a lot of questions to be answered there.
Yeah, and I think, it really depends. I mean, look how, Colorado's tandem, since they swapped both their goaltenders, has been lights out,
Mm-hmm.
It couldn't work out better for them, turn their season around, quite frankly. So seeing things like that predicates what should be an interesting situation as we get close to the deadline in terms of, who's available for goaltenders, who needs a goaltender, who's been injured. So nobody's looking to answer this question right now, but the dialogue and the narrative has shifted a bit, and I find it very interesting. So I look forward to talking about this more in the new, like further into the new year. You know, we're basically the new year now.
I think it'll be one of our hotter topics down the stretch. Don't you think?
Yeah, I think so. And one of the things that came out of all this, it's been talked about a fair bit already, but I want to point it out here as well, is that Dan Vladar has had the most difficult starts of the two far more often than not, which is smart, you know, to shelter a young goaltender. But at some point, Wolf has to start taking on some tougher assignments. And he's done, you know, he shut out Florida, for example. Like, he's done well.
He has had some tough ones, but yeah, I would agree that the bulk of them have been Vladar.
Yep. Yeah, and I was advocating earlier when Vladar, I wouldn't even say he was struggling, but I was a little bit impatient with him, and I was saying that, you know, we shouldn't be running with a tandem. Well, now the tandem is working. Goaltending is the least of our concerns. Our biggest concern right now, again, as it has been, is offense. And the one guy that you and I have talked a lot about via text and have been on the show, and we'll talk about it more now, I guess, is watching the game last night. I found that Sharangovich was a step behind. Like, it was like he double clutched every pass he took. And I'm at the point where I think I'd like to see him sit because he's not contributing anything.
I agree. I'm not going to argue with you on that. I don't know what we gain by having him sit, but I don't know what we lose. He doesn't come off to me as a player that, you know, needs a disciplinary sit. But right now we need to try something, right? Like he
needs a reset. And the flip side too, and I saw this a bit already, a few people bemoaning his contract and saying it was a mistake.
It's really early to say that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't like the performance we're getting.
Yeah.
But I struggle when I watch him right now to wonder why it's not clicking. It's not a work ethic thing that in my perspective, I guess it's not. I'm really curious to understand what his feelings are, and I don't even know what I'm trying to say here, because it has been a struggle, and it's getting to the frustration part, because this is not the same guy that we saw lighting the lamp last year, and it is creating some concern, because we did pony up and write him a check for a contract, which I still think the contract's a fairly feasible deal, but
that's not terrible.
It is a concern though, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, most certainly. And there's a few players like that we, you know, the team has to manage right now. Obviously, Kuzmenko is another one that we've talked about at length. And I don't know if you watched his interview today, but
I did. Did it not piss you off?
Well, I love his attitude and his infectious, you know, laughter and that kind of stuff. But I said this yesterday on X as well. I really feel that he should have got some power play shifts to try and, you know, break out of this funk, because he's still in the team at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And Sharangovich has done nothing, so I was kind of advocating for that. It didn't happen. There's no point dressing a guy like Kuzmenko and putting him on your fourth line. It's absolutely pointless.
No, it's not his role. It's not his role.
No, he doesn't. He's not like a Blake Coleman that can play up and down your lineup. He can't play a defensive role, right?
We're better off last night having him in Pelche's spot and Pelche on the fourth line.
Yeah, so, you know, 12 minutes of ice time, and
you could argue that with me too, but I just feel like that's probably a little bit more Pelche's role. But it also brings us to our X factor, where last night I was watching, and Aries Vael says you gotta put Kuz back in at some point. Why not play him against the lower tier teams? You're not getting anything for him without getting him going. You might as well just waive him. And that did bring the question: does something like that happen? Do we end up just waiving him?
Well, that's the way it's trending. You know, much like this tweet should be, because it's a great point. Like, you gotta get this guy's value up at least a little bit. You know, it's tough to do.
We're in a kind of a tough situation where you're right. We do need to play him, because we do need to, you know, to see what we can get for him. It's good asset management, right? But at some point, if it's hurting your team, and this team, as much as some of this fan base wants it to go away, it's still a playoff contending team, and we can't afford right now to be testing the waters on and Kuzmenko in there, because he has just been completely invisible, as is the Sharangovich that we were just talking about too.
Yeah, and then, you know, on the more positive side of things, I guess this is as good a segue as any. And again, that's a great X factor. I was looking for a few last night, and I didn't see that one at all, so I'm glad you chose that. But on the flip side, I had tweeted, it's almost 200 likes now, I think, which is a fair amount for a tweet related to the Flames. But Jonathan Huberdeau, and like, at what point can we say we were wrong about him? Now, some people, and I can't understand this unless they're just being trolls, but it's like, at no point am I saying, what's that?
People were giving you a hard time on saying that.
Well,
and I was
some were, but it's just stupid. It's like, at no point did I say he was worth anywhere near the money he's being paid. I said he's never going to break 100 points again, basically. And we know all this. But if the guy is going to contribute on a nightly basis and be a 60 to maybe 80 point player at the high end, it's pretty damn good considering we had the last 2 years. And people are bemoaning what the last 2 years were. We can't forget or forgive that. It's like, hey, it was what it was. You know, the guy's finding his game. He's contributing most nights. Like,
we can't do a damn thing about what he's done in the past, but he's got 7 points, 4 goals in the last 5 games.
Yep.
We probably better be pretty damn happy, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's how I'm trying to look at it. I mean, without his play, we're not in this playoff race, right? I mean, he's been driving the offense. Kadri's been better. And it's, you know, it's taken the heat off some guys who are struggling, like Sharangovich, Kuzmenko, and another guy that was talked about today on X is Rasmus Anderson. His offense is completely dried up. He's been a minus player for quite some time now, and that raised a few questions on X about what to do with the D pairings. And I actually, there's some stuff that I really liked. One of them was moving Pahal up in the lineup.
There was some talk of that last night. I heard a little talk on it on the 960 too. Is, you know, when does he get a chance moving up? I kind of maybe question a little bit because I think he's our rock in our third pairing right now, and it might scare me to move him up because I don't know who would fill that role as a rock on the third pairing. Because I still think to be a good NHL team and to be a quality defensive team, you've got to have 3 good pairings, and he's been the stalwart of that third pairing. So that would scare me actually to move him a little bit. But
but I mean, there's other things at play there, right? So I think you maybe look at trying it. But in so doing, I mean, maybe you're bumping Anderson up to play with Uyghur because Uyghur is like the backland of D. He makes anybody he plays with significantly better most nights, right?
Most nights, yeah. Where Miramonov comes back into the lineup? I believe it was after 5 games yesterday.
Yeah.
Your thoughts on him? Because I feel like he's having a hard time finding his place on this team.
Yeah, I was talking about him this morning actually. It's tough because he's a bit enigmatic. Like he's got the skill to play regularly, but I mean, defensively, obviously, he had a couple tough outings, and I think it's hard for a guy like him that has a different tool set, and you bring in like, you know, forgive the phrasing, like an old reliable like Joel Hanley to take his place, because you know what you're getting every night with a guy like Joel Hanley, right?
Joel Hanley was a guy that I hit him as a write-off all year. Like I literally had him as a write-off, and I love what he's brought to the table.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Jake Bean, I think, has been really good. But as far as Miramonov goes, I think he's going to need a few games back in to find his game, and what that looks like, I still don't know. I mean, he was a gamble when they acquired him in the Hannafin trade. Again, really unique skill set. He's actually really good friends with a buddy of mine. Really likable guy. I think he's going to find his way, and I expect he's going to contribute more regularly. But right now, I mean, that's a tough game to come back into in Vegas.
It is,
and I know he came back in because it was back to back, but
it is a tough game to come into. I'll give you that.
You want to come back in on like a Tuesday night and a sleepy game against like the Islanders or somebody else out of conference, right? You don't want to come in against a division rival on the second half of back to back. That's a tough assignment.
I thought he was fine last night. I've had my moments this year where I've really liked him, and I've had my moments this year where I've been really frustrated with him. I think when you look at our defense and you look at the season as a whole, as we near the halfway point, and I think our bright spots have been probably Paul and Hanley to some extent, because he's been Michael Stonish, and then we can have him sit in the press box for 2 weeks and he steps right in and acts like, you know, he doesn't miss a step, right? I think that's a huge factor. But our defense as a, and you know what? I was really critical of Kevin Ball earlier in the year. I really like what he's bringing I really like what he brings to the table, and I look forward to signing him.
Yep. No, me too. It's actually, we got to talk about that too. I mean, that hit on Grunstrom by Bahal on Saturday night. Oh, that was beautiful. That was beautiful.
He had him so lined up, and it was just.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it was a thing of beauty.
You know, I don't understand that fight after that one, because that was completely. It's a good check, right? It was a good check.
Yeah, a guy gets blown up like that. Like, I hate the fighting after the fact. Like, if you elbowed him or headhunted him or what, like, then I get it. But like, that's like, just go away. Your guy got rocked because he wasn't paying attention.
Yeah.
Going
back to Huberdeau, so I got a question for you.
Yeah.
So the Huberdeau that we're seeing now is not the same Huberdeau we saw in Florida, and it's not even the same Huberdeau we saw when he came to the Flames. He according to Wes Gilbertson, who posted right before the San Jose game, he's on pace for 35 goals this season, and his career high, which he hit it twice, was 30. So this guy's tracking good, but his style of game is much different. He's turned into somewhat of a power forward and a net front presence, and he's getting ugly, greasy goals. And I'm not.
Did you see the heat map where his goals are coming from last night?
They're
all in front of the net. They're all within 8 feet of the front of the net and within 2 feet of either side of it. There's nothing from the top of the circle. There's nothing from the blue line. There's nothing wrapped around behind the net. Like, it's all net front.
So what do you think the reasoning is here? I mean, what am I saying? What is the style change? Is it just because he wasn't finding success? So he's like, hey, I'm going to have to adapt to get something. I mean, I heard an interview the other day with him, and he made it sound like he's the best he can be right now. I mean, that he's playing at his best level right now.
I mean, I suspect it started with the lack of success, as you just said, previously in Calgary, and then I think after potting a few goals in tight, he's like, well, I'm going to chase this feeling. I'm going to keep doing what I have to do. And I mean, his board play has improved. His passing is still sublime, but I mean, the fact he's potting, more goals than anybody of late just speaks to that desire to get to the net, and make it happen. I mean, but he got smoked with that high stick last night, and he got absolutely. There's another call that should have been made that wasn't. He got leveled going into that. I think it was Brad McNabb cross-checked the shit out of him into the net.
Cross-check, yeah.
That is not like the fact this league even talks about player safety is so stupid. Like, that's ridiculous. There's no need of that BS.
Yeah, I gotta bring up a topic here. Got into an argument with a guy at work. We were talking hockey. This wasn't a work-related argument. It was a hockey-related argument. And I want to get your take on this. I suggested that, I don't know, I see it a ton in U.S. junior hockey. Not as much in college hockey. I've seen it quite a bit in junior hockey in Canada when I watch that, and I see it a lot in the NHL. But what's makes me more scared is now that I'm coaching youth hockey again, I'm a little more in tune with the lower levels of hockey. Mm-hmm. And I see a huge epidemic of players turning to draw checking from behind or boarding calls.
Yep.
And it bothers me. It scares me. And I was talking today, and I told a buddy of mine, I said, I think it should be a 2-minute penalty for turning. I think we need to do this, because what teams are doing now is they're like, I'll take my chance on breaking my neck for a call here. And players are blatantly last second turning, taking that hit. Am I out of line by even thinking that?
Initially, my first thought is it's almost like the tripping diving conundrum, right? Yeah, you got tripped. Yeah, you dove. So it's basically offsetting in the majority of cases. But then when it comes to turning, I mean, it's a little hard to call, because if you got the puck and you're trying to turn to send the puck, drive play in the opposite direction towards your opposition, there could be that last minute pivot. But I don't know how you enforce that. But I mean, I definitely think it's the case that we're seeing more and more people, putting themselves in positions trying to draw penalties, because now we recognize drawing penalties as an art form, which is why we always talk about Nazem Kadri and how good he is at it, right?
Yeah, no, I know. And I hate to see that, though, because I feel like we've worked so hard as a sport to create awareness and penalize people for going for those checking from behinds, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, definitely.
Now we've got people manipulating the progress we've made as a sport to gain power plays.
Yeah.
And that frustrates me too, because I still think there's people that are going to get hurt that are just, we could have avoided the situation had they handled it better, but because they chose to try to draw a penalty, now they're hurt, and it kind of defeats the whole reason for the enforcement of this, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that the narrative hasn't quite caught up to what's going on yet. So, because I mean, I see it too, and it's such a fast game. That's the biggest piece here. That's the biggest variable. Is it's so hard to know intentionality in the majority of cases. You know, a guy smokes a guy in the head. Well, he had him lined up. You know, they hit him in the chest and a last minute move because he's trying to get out of the way of the hit, or even kneeing sometimes. I mean, you can see when a guy sticks his leg out, but there's other instances where it just happens because it's so, and it happens to us in pickup. Like we play the lowest level of hockey you can possibly fathom, and there's always little injuries and collisions and stuff, and it's part of hockey. So all this stuff is really, really difficult. But enforcement, though, I want to use this as a segue into something interesting. Did you hear about the Dallas Stars being fined $100,000?
I did. I actually put it on my notes to talk about on the show today.
I you know what? I think that's fascinating. Yeah, it's fascinating. So
they practiced on December 26th, which, according to the CBA, is a holiday break for all teams where no one can report to the locker rooms.
Yep.
And they practiced and they have $100,000 fine. If memory serves me correct, did Vancouver not have the same issue last year?
There was an issue, but I can't recall what it was. Now we should note, in fairness to the Stars, it was an optional practice, but the rule states you cannot offer any type of practice optional or compulsory. You cannot do it at all.
Yeah.
And I can't understand, and this is what blows my mind. This reminds me of Jay Feaster and the Ryan O'Reilly offer sheet. And when it also makes me think of the American version of The Office, because it's so funny when like Michael Scott says to his boss, David Wallace, he's like, my understanding was I was not to be managed. Well, what gave you that understanding? Well, that was my understanding. And it's like when Feaster said, our understanding of the CBA. Yeah. Well, it doesn't matter how you understood something. You're fucking wrong. You're dead wrong. So how the Stars didn't think, you know what, we should check the rule book, right?
I don't think they gave a crap. I just think they thought, oh, I'll just pay the $100,000 because Pete DeBoer said, did you practice on, he was asked if you practice on 26, he said, optional. Yeah. Voluntary ice. Yeah, we did. He did. He didn't
know. And is it Tom Hicks that owns the Stars? Anyway, so. It doesn't. Anyway, so at one point it sounded like they were going to sell because of some financial difficulties. You wanted out. Well, spending $100,000 because you hosted an optional practice on fucking Boxing Day is a really stupid way to try and save money. But I think it's good because before I turn this podcast into some other kind of debate, I do think that the world has become far too secular and that we work way too hard. Our morals have become way too loose. And I think it's important to have mandated days off for fucking everyone. I understand, gas stations and stuff being open, pay them time and a half, double time, whatever you have to, because those are essential things. But we work too damn much, and the Stars getting their guys to have an optional practice on Boxing Day was stupid. And I'm glad they get fined for it, quite honestly. I really am.
Yeah, I don't know.
Remember the World Juniors started on Christmas Day?
Yeah, I did when I went.
17-year-old kids on Christmas Day playing a competitive hockey game. Like, it's wild.
But there was some nostalgia to that, though.
Oh, I loved it, but I didn't have to fucking do it. So, of course, I loved it.
I know, but I would have done it at 17 years old. I would have played at 2 in the morning.
Oh, man. If I mattered enough, man, at hockey, I would have loved it, too. Who we kidding? Yeah,
I got a question for you.
Okay, first of all, I love when you do that. Because I never, no matter how long I do this with you, I never know where the question is going, what it's concerning.
We don't talk about
it. But it's a slow pitch down the middle. I'm going to swing. So what's your question?
So Zane Perek, right? So there's been a lot of controversy this week since Canada lost to Latvia that he made social. Like Instagram. Like, was this really him? Because the one tweet I saw on X, it wasn't his account. So I don't know. Like, is this just too much? Is this just a bunch of BS, or did he really like this? And if he did really truly like this on social media, how do you feel about that?
Again, talked about it this morning with a gold medal winning junior hockey coach, Danny Flynn. And I mentioned it, and he and his wife, Elaine, just lovely people, by the way, they shared my opinion, where assuming it was him that did this, It's a really bad look and it's stupid. It's very immature.
I know. That's the way I feel too. I think it's a horrible look.
But and what it does,
it's an immature look. That's what I'm looking for.
Well, that's the word I settled on. So what it does, again, all things being equal, assuming it was him that liked this thing. This is a danger of social media, right? Nothing, everything is known now.
Yeah.
So in so doing, he just showed the world why he's not on the team, because it looks like a major character flaw. And people can argue and say, yeah, they can say whatever they want. Yeah. But he's a hotshot player. You can tell by the way he plays the game, his interviews. He's very confident, and confidence is very important to make it as a professional athlete. But it can border on the cocky. And in this case, based on what I've heard about the kid and his skill level and the fact he's left off the team, I don't think he handled this well. I really don't. But he's also a kid. So at the same time, I'm not going to sit here and treat him like he's a 40-year-old man who should know better, right? These guys are young. They're developing athletes. There's got to be some grace there.
I agree. But there's a point too, though, that I don't know. It reminds me of, was it last year or 2 years ago that the captain of the Canadian World Junior team didn't take his helmet off during the Russian national anthem? Was that last year? 2 years ago? 2 years ago.
I think it was 2 years. Yeah.
2 years ago. And I'm like, is it a big deal? If you're a Canadian, it's probably not a big deal, but if a Russian would have done that, would have been a big deal then for people in Canada.
Yep.
You look at it two-sided, right? And don't know it's no different than the States either. But the way I look at that is, would that kid do that I can't remember who the player was. It was a captain. It doesn't matter. Would he do that at age 30? No, probably not. At age 18, did he do it? Yeah, he did it. Mm-hmm. That doesn't make it right. That doesn't. I don't write free checks for kids to make dumb decisions. We can all say it's a dumb decision and walk away from it from there.
Yeah.
But I also look at this Perek thing and I think, okay, in the role that he's been in, and one of the criticisms, a criticism of his game was his defensive capabilities. A positive was his offensive abilities. As a person, one of his criticisms was, his, I hate to use the word arrogance because I don't know him personally, right? But that arrogance has come out in some of his interviews. And I'm with you. I'm all about confident speaking and playing players equal the better players, right?
Yep.
But this is probably a point in time where he, in the heat of the moment, did something on social media. But we've been saying this all along in life since social media became things. And I've caught myself, and I've posted some stuff that I regret posting too. I think every one of us could probably think of one or two things that we've done, right? I can think of two right off the top of my head that I posted something about hockey in anger, right? Because I was mad at a situation. But I think it's a lesson learned for each and every one of us. Sometimes you maybe want to put it on your phone, then set your phone down. And then if you pick your phone up 20 minutes later and it's still relevant, then fire away. But I don't think he would have fired away 20 minutes later. I don't.
No. That's just it. I had a conversation like this with a really good friend of mine the other day. I get, upset about some things in a conversation that we had, and I quickly regretted them, because we do, because people do say they say things and do things they don't mean when they're upset. And it's amazing how the human mind will spit them out so quickly. And, and especially with social media, because we're all so trigger happy, right?
Well, Kyle, it's been a problem my whole life when I look at myself. It is honestly something in the last 15 years that I've consciously tried to improve at is responding to whether a verbal conversation or a phone conversation in a more professional, better way when it's something that's pissed me off. So,
we've had that.
Yeah,
me too. We've had miscommunication because, especially when we started doing this, we didn't have much rapport built. We didn't know each other well. So, I remember sending a text, and your interpretation of my text was that I was a little upset, and I wasn't at all. Yeah. But that's how how I worded something. What was going on when I sent it or whatever. That's all part of it. But anyway, to bring this kind of full circle, I actually referenced this today. as much as people bemoan selections for these players and these camps, as they well should, because we have an embarrassment of riches of skilled hockey players in Canada at the junior level that could be selected. But I was thinking, and I referenced earlier, Elias Anderson throwing his silver medal into the crowd.
Oh yeah,
one of the worst looks, and it doesn't get talked about much anymore, which is good for Elias Anderson. And another guy had joked, well, he should have kept it. It was the highlight of his hockey career to this point. But it's a terrible, terrible look. And that's a much more egregious thing than just liking a post on Instagram, but it all speaks to the same thing. You have to be mindful of the things you say, the things you do, your audience, your reach, as a aspiring professional athlete who's been a drafted, high caliber athlete. These, and this is why, scouts, coaches, everybody talks so much about character.
Yeah.
It's so important, right? And yeah.
And something we can't lose grasp of on this is we don't truly know that it was him. So
no, and it's not even about him. It's about whatever, we can sit here and question anybody we want. I mean, we only know as much as we know. We don't know these people personally, right? But like you just said, we all make mistakes. We all do, act immaturely, even at 40, 50, 60 years old, same as when we were 15 or 20. It's just different context, right? So
that's right.
Anyway, we'll see what happens with the remainder of the tournament.
One point I want to make, and then one thing I got to ask you a question on. Jacob Pelche and Walker Dewar now are no longer waiver exempt after the participation in the last couple games. That's going to create some controversy down the stretch. I got a feeling that's just my gut telling me something.
Yeah.
And this is what I wanted to ask you, Kyle. I've had multiple people ask me today what my New Year's resolution is. And I don't make New Year's resolutions. I don't know if you do, because I think they're stupid. But
well, no, I'm not going to tell you.
But that being said, no. But my question is, what situation that we see playing out in the next 12 months about the Flames or about hockey are you looking forward to the most?
That's good. I mean, the biggest thing is when the veterans start to be dealt and the new guys, grab hold of full-time roles. So over the next 12 months, I suspect we're going to see some combination, permutation, whatever, of Coleman, Kadri, possibly Anderson, possibly Vladar, guys that could be moved, and how the guys can be going to shut themselves, right?
We're going to be talking a lot about it, and I have a lot of thoughts in future episodes on who should go, who shouldn't go, and I think you do too, Kyle. So I'm looking forward to seeing how this team progresses and seeing what happens, and then also discussing who we think should be moved and who would be better off being moved. And I'm sure there'll be some controversies in our thoughts there. One thing that I am really looking forward to in this calendar year is how the new NCAA hockey allowance of CHL players coming down affects the landscape of junior/developmental hockey, because it's going to be enormous.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely it is.
Because I talked to people involved in the WHL, friends who I have working, and they're losing players to the NCAA. The USHL is losing players to the CHL.
Yep.
The North American Hockey League is losing players to the USHL. It's a giant shuffle. We have USHL teams now that want to leave and go be part of the Canadian Hockey League, and USA Hockey is not letting this happen. There's going to be a ton that happens in the next 12 months on this, and it's going to be intriguing as hell to watch.
Well, and it's already been changing for a while, because a lot of these guys, you can have a player that's, got a Russian or a Swedish parent, for example. So there's citizenship issues around, like import drafts and all those different things, and what the rules are, and exceptional status a la John Tavares in the OHL at one point. Like, there's so many variables caused by the globalization of hockey that I couldn't even sit here and tell you whether, the best path or the best league for a player to go in from a developmental standpoint. And we talked about NCAA all kinds on this show. I mean, it's one of the best developmental programs there is, right? Look at the amount of great American hockey players we have now from those programs. And, we used to draft all these big burly defensemen out of the Western Hockey League in Canada. Well, now the Quebec League is, producing a lot more skill. It's a much more, high potent offensive league, right? And the OHL, it's always kind of the crown jewel of the three because Ontario has some wicked hockey schools, hockey programs, a lot more money in the big urban centers like Toronto. So I'm kind of rambling here, but point is, there's a lot of interesting things going to happen around all that and the way that these rules affect, who gets drafted, when guys are ready to play in the NHL, and where you're going to pull all this talent from.
If we see an age change in the draft, because there's been talk that they want to make it 19 now, the NHL does. So it's going to be intriguing and something that we will look forward to in the coming year.
Yeah, exactly. So speaking of the coming year, because this is basically our New Year's edition of the show, I also, like you, don't really believe in New Year's resolutions. If I'm going to make a change, I try to do it well ahead of the new year. Whether it's a gym thing, a diet thing, just being a better person, whatever the case may be. But whatever you people do, believe, resolutions, etc., hopefully that everybody has a good start to 2025. We got the Flames and Canucks. We have a very busy week ahead, actually.
We do.
A very, very busy week, and it's going to be a very telling week for that reason. So we got, well, you rattle off to me because we talked about this earlier. So we got Flames and Canucks on New Year's Eve.
New Year's Eve, Tuesday night, which this podcast will come out Tuesday morning. So Tuesday night, tonight, we got Vancouver visiting Calgary, New Year's Eve game. And then Thursday, Utah's in town, and Saturday, Nashville's in town for a Hockey Night in Canada. It's a busy week for the Flames. It really is. And you're right. It's going to be a telling week as this team just hovers on the outside of that last wildcard spot. So lots can change with...
as with regards, and it's going to be what's going to be in terms of the Vancouver Calgary game, who are you starting in net? Wolf or Vladar?
I'm going Wolf.
Yeah.
Here's what I'm doing. I don't remember what coach used to do this, but when in you're in is where I'm going right now.
Yeah.
Unless it's a back-to-back, then I could maybe see it. But I'm not even I'm not even one of those guys that thinks that goalies can't play back-to-backs because I think they can. So
yeah. Well, I know another guy that thought that too, actually.
Who's that? You?
Yeah, maybe not too strongly, but Mike Keenan. And I mentioned Mike Keenan again because I just wanted to know. I just finished Matt Sundin's book and it was pretty good. Mike Keenan's, I can hardly put it down. It is so honest and so self-deprecating at times. Guy had a fascinating journey into coaching pro hockey, despite what Flames fans may think of him and certain Flames players past felt about Mike Keenan. It's a fantastic book, written with Scott Morrison, who's done quite a few hockey books. Everybody who knows hockey media knows Scott. I can't recommend it enough, so I want to give Mike Keenan's book a shout out on the podcast for sure. Definitely pick it up. And there's a chapter on the Flames that is worth reading.
I will have to definitely put that one on my list. All right, Flames fans, let's get you going here. Let you get into the new year. Vancouver in town Tuesday, Thursday Utah, Saturday Nashville, all home games. And most importantly, be safe. Happy New Year. I'm not going to lie, it was a difficult year for a myriad of reasons, but you know what? I'm smiling because brighter days are ahead, and I'm looking forward to a fun 2025.
You and me both.
All right, friends, have a good week. Be safe, and we will chat next week.
Thanks for listening to Flames Unfiltered with Brad Burud and Kyle Lewis, your source for unfiltered Calgary Flames hockey talk. Keep it locked on FlamesUnfiltered.ca. Subscribe where you get all your podcasts to never miss an episode. Flames Hockey Talk every week, presented by Inside Edge Hockey Media Group.